I think we're on air. Good morning, everyone. As usual, it's a wonderful, wonderful day. If you see my hair flitting about, it's because we've got the fan on full. It's very warm here in Florida. I'm happy to say. And I'm sorry for all of you who are still suffering and having to trudge through the slush and the snow and the cold, and you're still wearing your scarves and your hats and all of that. I just have to say again, it's gorgeous here in Florida. It's beautiful, beautiful day. It's been beautiful the last few weeks. It's just been incredible. Just a really nice temperature. Spring has definitely come here. And of course, it's Easter this weekend. So first of all, before we begin, I'd like to say good morning to Gregor, who is, as always, standing to my right side. I would like to say hello to my darling little puppy boy. Come here, sweetie pie. He's having a snuggle with Carolyn because, yes, yay, Carolyn's here again this morning. Say good morning, Carolyn.
Good morning, Carolyn.
And we also have Al. Can you hear me, Al?
I can. Good morning.
Good morning to you. How are you?
Doing well.
Good, good. I know that you were not so great, and if anybody would like to send healing your way to zap your head, I've always known that you had issues with your head.
you couldn't resist, right?
I couldn't. I thought we'd start the show off, on a light note. All right. So before we begin then, it is Easter. Many of you I know do not celebrate Easter. I always think of, of Easter as a very special time because when I was a young gal, I used to go to the church that I belonged to, was the Church of Christ, and we always celebrated Easter in a very, very special and wonderful, wonderful way. And on our Easter service, which was Easter Sunday, the church would always give each of us kids a daffodil, because in England, the daffodils should be really, really blooming now. I do miss that sight. I really do miss that wonderful sight of all those masses and masses and masses of daffodils. And I don't know if any of you know the Wordsworth poem, which is Daffodils. I'm trying to think how it goes now. I'll think of it later. But anyway, we always used to be given a daffodil by the church, and we'd take it home very proudly to our mother. And as there were 4 of us girls when I was a kid, she always had 4 daffodils that she had to stick in a vase somewhere. But my father grew daffodils, and the garden was splendid with all of those yellow, yellow, beautiful flowers. I also think, when I think of flowers, of course, now I always think of soul signs. And because we liken the soul to a daffodil or a variety of the daffodil genus, I think it's called. But so there's a variety of, I think, at least 12 that we use for the soul signs. And I'm a warrior soul. I'm an earth sign, so I have that fabulous big giant trumpet. Daffodil is likened to the sight and the size of my soul. Beautiful, bright, standing very proud and tall, which is what we warriors do. So it's Easter, and my grandson is going to be delivered of an Easter egg, because chocolate Easter egg is also what Easter's about. Do you have Easter eggs, Carolyn, here? Do you do the Easter egg?
Easter egg hunts, yeah.
You do. Do you have the big chocolate Easter eggs that we have in England? It's very hard to buy them here. It's really hard to buy them in the States.
I don't think so.
But there's a fabulous English shop in New York. It's called Myers of Keswick. I'm going to give them a little, heads up there. I had this lovely man I was talking to who went all through every single Easter egg that they had in the store, so that I could choose and make a choice of what they had, which was great. So I'm keeping my fingers crossed. My daughter and my grandson are going to get their Easter eggs as usual. My son-in-law is not getting an Easter egg this year. I'm afraid he's going to have to share with the other 2. That's the way of it. That's how it is, because they get more expensive every single year. Do you celebrate Easter, Al?
We do, yes.
Do you celebrate the birth of Christ? Well, not the birth of Christ. The coming of Christ, walking through on his donkey and all of that stuff. Do you do that?
We recognize it. For sure.
So you recognize it. Yes. So you have the big Easter dinner and all of that stuff.
We do. We do more of breakfast, lunch in my family, but we do lots and lots of fun baked goods, and it's nice preparing for it. It's a good family thing preparing for it.
I suppose it's a good time, isn't it? It is a good time to get together at Easter. Of course, I'm in here on my own. Everyone has to say because I'm here on my own. And so I don't know what I'm going to do for Easter Sunday, but I'm here on my own. My friend did invite me to go there for Sunday lunch, but her entire family and her daughter's entire family and in-laws and all the rest of it are going. So I'm going to beg off that one. And probably stay here by myself and do a little bit of gardening. I don't know, something came up here. Can you look at this for me? What is this, Carolyn?
Your startup disk is full.
What does that mean?
I don't know. That would be an Al question later on.
Okay. Al, my startup disk is full, whatever that means.
You're okay for now, though.
Okay, good. So, all right. So, before I forget, then happy Easter to everyone. All right, the competition, we've got a lot of entries. I'm surprised actually at how many entries we do have. Therefore, you have to be patient with me because with Carolyn being out and her having her own situation, her own struggles. I did allow the entry date, the final entry date, to go over this weekend, but now we're on it, and so you have to give me at least a week. I don't know if I can do it sooner than that, but I've got to read through all the entries that I've got to figure out which of those stories. Really, what I'm looking for is which of those stories inspires me the most, and what's going to inspire me in these stories is how much the writer of the story was inspired, and how much perhaps they learned through their experience, and they grew through their experience. So that is, it's going to be a tough job, I think, but that is what I'm looking for. So we'll narrow it down, but give me time to do that. All right. In the meantime, I know we've got quite a few people here, so let's go to our first question. Al, would you like to ask the first question?
Sure. Lisa asks, when a soul crosses over to the spirit world, do they go through a life review, meaning all the things you did that made people happy or sad, a sort of self-judging?
That's a great, yeah, I know what she means. That's a really great question, Lisa. Good morning to you.
This is the Lisa that we had just discussed.
Oh, if you're there, Lisa, and listening, and we hope you are, and I think you must be. We did get your other email, and so I'm just going to say for that, before I answer the question you just asked, before I say for that, you're doing exactly the right thing. You need to go get it checked out. I think at the end of the day, going to be fine.
No. The healing request.
Oh,
she had the healing request for her husband.
Wrong. Okay, wrong one then.
Yes.
Oh, the one we just did.
Yes.
Oh, okay. Sorry. It's good. Good thing Carolyn knows what we do, because I'm getting confused. Yes, Lisa, if you go on Facebook, you'll see that we did mention your husband. We did mention you, and we're on it, and we're sending healing. Go on Facebook and take a look at that message, okay? Because it'll be on the healing page. All right. So this is another Lisa. Sorry. Who wants to know, do we have a life review when we pass in the spirit world? And I think it's a brilliant question. So this is my understanding of things, Lisa. When we pass into the spirit world, we go to that place of light and beauty, and we are faced with a choice. Now, most of us don't even consider it a choice. Most of us just go there, and when we get there, we deal with whatever we have to deal with. But there are some people, perhaps, who have not been so good in their lives, or they feel that they are nervous about, going into the light and what have you, that they make a choice. You can go there, or you can go, I don't know why we consider hell down there, but you know what I'm saying. Well, we don't necessarily have to go to that place of light and that place of love, which, many of us will call heaven. But when you step into the light, this is my understanding of what happens, and I've been very privileged to have a taste of this. It isn't always pretty. It is not that someone else is looking at it as and judging us, Lisa. It's that we see ourselves in all our glory, so to speak. We see within us that light that we step into is that light which shines on us, and we cannot escape it. And we cannot escape what it is we see. We cannot escape what it is we have been, what it is that we have done through our lives, and how we have learned and grown. Now, for all of you who might be panicking now, because there isn't one of us on this earth who hasn't done something awful, you know, or said something awful or been mean. There's not one of us is a perfect being. Remember, Gregel said to me, giving the butterfly as the example, not perfect, but yet still beautiful. So when we stand in the light, we won't see ourselves as perfect by any means. I don't think any of us is going to see ourselves as perfect, but we will see ourselves in our entirety, and we will have to face all of the stuff, good and bad, not just the bad, the good and the bad. And it isn't that someone else is judging us. It isn't that, you know, there's this man with a long white beard sitting there in judgment of us. You know, you're good, you go to the right, you're good, you go to the left. That is not how it happens. It is that we judge ourselves, we look at ourselves, and we then see, you know, the stuff that we are perhaps remorseful about. We wish we hadn't, you know, done things quite that way, or we wish we hadn't said something that we said to hurt someone. I have a particular something that I said to my father at one time many years ago, and I'm still regretting it to this day. I mean, and I'm talking over 40, maybe even longer years ago. Oh God, can I go back? Oh dear me. Anyway, a long time. I can remember in saying something to him when I was a young adult that was, it just popped out of my mouth, you know, it's just one of those things that pops out of your mouth. There was no malice or forethought in it. It was just there. But when I said it to him, I looked at his eyes and I saw how, you know, it was, I might as well have gotten a knife and stabbed him in the heart, because what I said was, you know, was very painful for him to hear. It wasn't meant to be cruel, but certainly it was cruel. So, you know, with all of us, every one of us said things and done things that we don't like, that are not nice, that perhaps we wish we hadn't said. But when we stand in the light, when we go stand in the light of God, and we see ourselves as we really are and we really have been, then we have a choice, and we have, you know, opportunities to correct that and to correct the things that we said and did. We also have an opportunity to see, and this is probably the most painful thing of all, to see how what we said, what we did, how we acted affected other people, and we see other people's hurts and pains that we have caused. So we judge ourselves, and you know, we can choose to judge ourselves harshly and never forgive ourselves, or we can choose to judge ourselves, and there are our angels with us. Remember this, our angels are with us, and you know, we have the light of God to guide us, so that we can correct so many of these things. And even if we can't correct specific things or take back specific things that we said, we can change. We can change our attitude. We can change the way we think. We can change the way we feel. We can change the way we love. And so, you know, nobody's condemning us. And I don't think anyone is going to be turned out of heaven. You know, if you want to go in, that's what you do. You go in, but you have to take, you know, whatever it is that you see with you, and you have opportunities to correct that. Well, then I think I'm done with that. Do you want to say anything to that, Al?
No, I do not.
Okay, then. Right. All right. So, Carolyn, shall we have our next question, please?
Well, Priscilla was here waiting for us before the show started.
Yeah, Priscilla, I'm so sorry. I should have mentioned you in our healing on Facebook, and your name was on the crease, and I didn't see it. So sorry, darling, but we were thinking of you, and we're still thinking of you now. Do you want to ask a question? It's a very personal question. So
she says next week she has an ultrasound for a known lump in her right breast. Should she be worried?
Well, even if I tell you not to worry, you're going to worry. So I think what you mean is it going to be something really awful that you won't be able to get over? I think actually what's going to happen, darling, is that you've caught it early. I think you're doing exactly the right thing. Go get it sorted out. Go get it seen to. There'll be a bit of an issue, but nothing that you won't be able to get over. All right. And we should be sending you healing every single day. Please let us know once you have the results of the scan, and let us know, you know, what we need to do next. And email us with that information, rosemary@rosemaryaltea.com. And if any of you out there wants healing or knows of someone who has healing or would like to put someone on our healing list, rosemary@rosemaryaltea.com. If you want to ask a question on this show but you're not able to join us live, we do take questions via email, as you've just seen with Priscilla. And so just email us again. I'm going to mention it again, rosemary@rosemaryaltea.com. Al, do we have a question?
We do, from Sharon.
Good morning, Sharon.
Sharon asks, when you visit someplace that's supposedly haunted, do the spirits there try to reach out to you?
Well, you got the supposedly. Hauntings are funny things, but simply put, yes, if there is someone in the spirit world who is in a building or in a place that is supposedly haunted, or if they are there, someone in the spirit world is there, they're there for a reason. They're not there just hanging out waiting for the next person to come along. They're there for a reason. Very often it's unfinished business that they have. Very often it might be that they are, you know, watching over a family member or waiting for an opportunity to talk to a family member. We just talked earlier about the fact that, you know, we don't always, you know, do the right thing. We all of us say the wrong thing sometimes. There are times when I've said things to my daughter as a mother that I could have done it better or differently, certainly. And so sometimes people, let's say, you know, haunt a place because they're trying to get through to those who they love and to make a correction or to say they're sorry or whatever. So, you know, I'm just thinking, I don't know if anyone has seen the movie with Ricky Gervais, and it's called Ghost Town. And it's a very funny movie, actually. But, you know, he sees dead people in this movie, and a lot of the way that it's done, it's lovely the way that it's done, but a lot of the way that it's done really does explain why some people in the spirit world will, let's say, hang about, or they'll stay around us because they might have some unfinished business. They might have something that they need to get off their chest. And so if you want something to do over the Easter weekend, you know, you can get it on, I don't think you can get it on Netflix, but you can certainly get it on Amazon Prime. I have the DVD. It's really worth getting. It's a fun movie. But it also it's quite, if you look at the way that, I can't tell you what happens, but if you look at the way that he deals with the people he can see and talk to in the spirit world, you know, it's pretty close in some respects to what actually happens. That's all I'm going to say.
What's the movie again?
Ghost Town. Ghost Town with Ricky Gervais. Don't know how to spell it, but not off the top of my head. Anyway, I think it's CHEVAIS or something like that. Anyway, Ricky Gervais. And he's brilliant. All right. So, Al, next question, please. Are you asleep? Did I catch you off guard? Carolyn, do you have a question?
Melinda has a question.
Yeah, let's go.
What kind of ceremony will be held on the other side for Easter?
Oh, well, who is this?
Melinda.
Melinda. What a good question, Melinda. Well, it depends on, you know, what you believe, isn't it? It depends on, you know, what you've learned when you've gone over there. I mean, I would imagine that anytime there's a family get-together, or anytime that we on this earth have a special occasion that we're going to go to, or a special prayer that we're saying, our loved ones in the spirit world will certainly join in with us. And if anybody's having a family dinner or a family lunch stroke brunch or whatever it is that Al has. I'm sure, Al, your dad is going to be right there, sort of checking on you all and joining in. So they celebrate with us when we are celebrating. But, you know, individually, I mean, it depends on the person, how they celebrate in the spirit world. I like the question. It shows that you're thinking, sweetie. But I think it's up to the individuals how they celebrate and what they celebrate and why they celebrate. Al, are you awake? Did we
No, I was actually looking up the movie to post it for everyone.
All right. Good.
So I did that.
Thank you.
So Nathaniel asks.
Good morning, Nathaniel. Nate, brother Nate. Yes.
In the spirit world, can immature spirits cause mayhem at will, like they presently do on Earth? And are there sentinels who monitor behavior, having authority to isolate those who are disruptive? Good question.
Well, I don't know that anyone is isolated. There are sentinels. We talked about this, I think, last week a little bit. We mentioned sentinels last week. So there are sentinels, and they have certain, you know, work to do, certain tasks that they have to perform. There are sometimes, we do sometimes get someone who is mischievous. Just as we do on this earth, we sometimes get kids who are very mischievous. There's a wonderful story about Charlie the poltergeist, who I can't remember which book of mine it's in, but it's a great story. And you would think that he would be mischievous. And what happened was there were two young girls and their mother, and they were living in a house. And every morning when they woke up, the towels would be thrown on the floor. The towels would be in the bathtub. There were towels all over the place. There's stuff all over the place. For some reason, only in the bathroom. They just assumed that the house, I think they were renting the house until their own house was ready. I think that's how it went. But anyway, they assumed that the house must be haunted. And this comes back to another question somebody just asked as well about hauntings. So they assumed that the house must be haunted. And so they nicknamed, and they weren't afraid at all. The girls loved the fact that they had this poltergeist and that he was naughty. They nicknamed him Charlie. And at some point, way beyond those happenings, the girls were now grown up. And the mother came to me and, you know, the first thing I said to her was, do you have a twin? Are you a twin? And she said, no, absolutely not. Well, I won't tell you the whole story. It's far too long, but she did have a twin. She'd just forgotten about him because he died within hours of them both being born. And she'd never even thought about it. She didn't know. Her parents did tell her you were one of a twin. There was you had a brother. But she never thought about it, never questioned it, because it was never in her life. And she grew up as an only child in that respect. And so as she grew up, her brother, the twin who had died, also, you know, it grew with her. And when I saw him standing behind her or just to the side of her, he was a grown man just as she was. She probably was in her sort of mid to late 50s, as was he. And anyway, to cut a long story short, it turned out that this brother who adored and worshipped her and was watching her family all through her life, watching her kids, growing up with the kids, and being an uncle to these girls in his own way, you know, just being an uncle. He loved the fact that the girls had nicknamed him Charlie. So it turned out that he was Charlie the poltergeist. So make of that what you will. I've forgotten even the question now, but anyway, there you are. Karen, do you have a question?
Melinda actually had another question.
Good morning, Melinda, again.
Does the mind body clear as soon as we pass to make the decision to go to the light? Example, a person passes from a drug overdose.
No, I don't think it's an immediate clearing of the mind. Of course, the body, anything that is happening and going on with the body, if we're sick in body, yes, of course, that clears, because we're now using what is known as the etheric or the spirit body, the same shape and same size and so on, but not sick. And for instance, if you've someone who lost a leg The etheric body is whole, it's complete, it's intact. So we use the body, but the mind and the heart and the soul in turmoil certainly needs help. And this is where our angels come in, and they help us and they guide us to clear our minds, to clear our way, so that we can look forward and then make a decision as to what we want to do. But anyone who is sick or in need in that way of mind, of soul, of heart, our angels gather us to them and take us to a safe place where we're given an opportunity to heal, we're given an opportunity to grow, we're given an opportunity to learn. Al, do we have another question?
Yeah, sort of related to that question, Debra asks, when we are passing to the other side, are we aware of everything going around us, which you discussed a little bit? Do we hear our loved ones that are with us, or are we only aware of the people that have already crossed over?
Very often people will tell me, people in the spirit world will tell me we heard them crying, or we heard them saying goodbye. I think that we still retain, certainly in the early stages of passing, we certainly retain our ability to hear, to sense, to feel, to see. We don't leave our loved ones behind completely. We are still with them. We're still there for them. And of course, once we have arrived, we can then look back and we can choose to go back and stand with them and be with them. So, you don't have to leave someone behind just because you're moving forward into that next stage of life. Hope that's clear. Carolyn.
Melinda says, thank you so much for answering my questions.
You're welcome.
And Angie asks,
good morning, Angie.
Is it really possible for spirits to leave scratches, bruises on living beings? Why would this happen, and are they angry?
Well, this is a whole other subject, because you're now talking of perhaps some sort of possession. Because the only way that I can think, right, if anybody out there knows any differently, just let us know. But the only way that someone can have scratches or bruises or what have you, if they've been in a bit of a tumble or a bit of a fight. I'm thinking back to when I did rescue work, which is the closest I can think. Certainly, I was not possessed, but I allowed my body to be used as a vehicle for those in the spirit world to express themselves. And the closest I can remember to having any physical harm or bruises would be when we had a lady who was she was buried alive in a coffin, which happened all the time many years ago, because we didn't know, nobody had the wherewithal to check your pulse or check your heartbeat or what have you, and so and very often, people were buried often with a bell tied to their toe. The bell was on the outside of the coffin, and the obviously, and so if for any reason you came awake as you were being buried, they would tug the bell, and then people would know that that you were alive inside there. They had other ways and means to do the same thing, but it was very common years ago to find that people had been buried alive. How would they know? Well, sometimes people rang the bell, and sometimes if a coffin, that if there was somebody heard a noise in the coffin, and they would open the coffin lid and they'd find scratches and what have you, somebody trying to scrabble out. This lady that I was helping to come to terms with what happened to her, she had a terrible, terrible time of it. I don't know really. I'm not going to say that I'm absolutely sure that you can't get bruises or scratches, but it's such a tiny, 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 if at all, a percentage. I think the most likely thing is that we can certainly, if we feel that we're being possessed, if we feel that we're being taken over or what have you, I think it's most likely that we can do the damage to ourselves. And it is certainly the case. And there is case history in one of my books, in the book A Matter of Life and Death, where someone in the spirit world, an evil entity, in fact it was, tried to take over my body. And what happens is they will try, using mind games, they will try to, you know, it's almost like being hypnotized in a way. They will try to get you to harm yourself. They will try to get you to scratch yourself. They will try to get you to bruise yourself, whatever, because they want to inflict harm on you. So they try to take over your mind in order to do that. It's very complex. Wow, it's a bit complex topic that we're talking about now, but it happens so very, very, very rarely. The percentage is so low as to be almost non-existent. The reason that I did write the story of this this particular man, his name is Charles Brandt, and he was a serial killer. To my knowledge, he is the number one, if that's any accolade of any kind. Number one, he's killed the most people that we know of to date, or he certainly was in the FBI list of serial killers, is still. And I had occasion to meet him face to face. The reason I wrote the story, as horrible as the story is, and as horrible as it talks about evil and how evil can be very pervasive in our lives, there's always the light, and there's always good, and light always wins out over the dark. Always. I think I said the other week, you know, you get two rooms and they're joined with a door between. You've got a room that's just totally dark and a room that's completely light. When you open the door, light floods in. Dark does not flood in. Light floods in and brings light. So light is always the more powerful, the most powerful thing. But I also think it is, you know, for all of you out there who like to dabble, who like to go into this stuff and, you know, do the Ouija board and do all those things without having someone sensible who knows what they're doing with you, you're really courting, you know, danger. So don't do it, is my advice. So, you know, be cautious. And the reason I wrote the story in the first place is because it's, if you don't know something's out there, you can't protect yourself against it. So knowing that the evil does lurk in some places, knowing how to combat it, which is to say prayer, which is to fill your mind and your heart filled with life and the love of God, nothing will harm you. Nothing can get to you at all, which is, again, what I say in the story. Al, do you have a comment there?
Yeah, I was thinking as you were talking about that, you know, if someone does believe that a place is haunted, I think my own perception is always it's a bad thing, you know, it's haunted. But I guess I know there is somewhere in between. And how do people tell if they do believe it is haunted and it is in fact haunted? How do you tell? And then you answered kind of how do you protect if it is someone that's negative?
Well, you know, hauntings are not necessarily bad things, and the word haunting is it's a bit spooky. It conjures all the spooky stuff, and it does conjure up, you know, ghosts and ghouls and things that go bump in the night that aren't necessarily great and a bit scary. But you know, when, you know, I'm not sure that I would use the word haunting. I think, you know, people in the spirit world don't come to haunt us; they come to visit us. So I think we might want to change our perception of what, you know, being haunted means. There are some people who do stay in one place. And again, I wrote a story about a wonderful, beautiful young woman who, for whatever reason, you have to read the books, she killed herself, and then she found herself, she refused, she went back to her family home where she'd been safe and where she'd been nurtured and where she had a good family. And she stayed there for, well, to my knowledge, I think it probably was about over 50 years until her brother passed. I think her brother was somewhere, it's a true story, somewhere in his early 20s, his sister took her own life, and he passed in his 70s and came to ask me, could I help his sister to pass over, because she refused, because of the trauma of the reason for why she took her own life, all of that trauma, she just refused to come out of that spot. So that place was definitely haunted. She was definitely staying there. She wasn't even visiting. She just was staying there and refusing, no matter how many times her angels came for her, no matter how many times her parents came for her. She just couldn't face the light, and she was afraid. And so she stayed where she was because she felt safest there. So, you know, hauntings, you know, when we talk about hauntings, we get all shivery and spooky and all the rest of it, but there's no need, because a haunting simply means that somebody's come to visit for whatever reason. Occasionally, on a rare occasion, it's a malevolent thing going on, but mostly not.
Guess who popped up?
Who popped up?
Jan and Bob.
Oh, hello. Good morning.
She heard you on the Healing Minute.
How are you, darlings? Please email us and let us know. Do they have a question for us?
No, she said she
That's
promised
okay.
she'd email them.
Lots of love and kisses to you, and I miss my lunches with you. Where are you? Please let us know how you're doing. We are sending you lots of love and healing, and if all of you watching YouTube could say hi to Jan and Bob and send them lots of love and healing, we would very much appreciate it, because they are a darling couple. They're the best ever, right, Carolyn?
Yes, yeah,
they are the best. We love you guys. All right, Al, let's have another question, shall we?
Martha asks,
Good morning, Martha.
if a suicide was planned, is the mind clear? I guess when they pass.
Not necessarily. You know, there are so many different reasons why, and I'm saying no, but there are circumstances. I'm thinking of one man who took his own life. That's my puppy climbing up here. Took his own life because he felt, as it turned out wrongly, but he felt that his wife could have a better life without him. He was paralyzed. His mind was perfectly clear, and he knew exactly what he was doing. And he was one of the bravest men, I think, to do what he did, misguided, but brave. And that it must have been very, very difficult for him to do what he did. So, but there are other times when someone is sick or muddled or confused or angry or frustrated. So it's an impossible question to ask with just a simple answer. Carolyn.
She did add, after you pass. So if a suicide was planned, is the mind clear after?
No, because usually it's one of those situations we talked earlier on about, when the mind, the soul, the heart is damaged or in need of help. It's usually one of those situations where our angels will take us to a place of help and healing and get us, settled. If any of you out there have had this happen to you, you know someone or you love someone who took their own life, please don't be afraid, because the angels are with them. They are, in my experience, always helped. They're always given healing. They're always, have someone to guide them and to steer them and to help them to understand, what it was that was muddling and confusing to them. Al, do we have a question from you?
Yes, Debra asks, when my dad was passing, the radio was off, and yet the static kept getting louder on the radio. What was that?
Yeah, I love that. Energy. It's lots and lots of energy. Probably, when your dad passed, darling, what's her name again? Who am I talking
Debra.
to? Debra. Good morning, Debra. When your dad passed, Debra, probably what was happening was he had a whole host of people gathering around, coming to visit and to help him on his journey, and all of that energy can certainly affect. I had a consultation yesterday with a lovely lady who was talking about all the light bulbs popping in the house and so on, and it turns out that she had an uncle who died very young. And he was very fond of her. She was just a little girl when he died, but he was very fond of her. And we talk about mischievous, people being mischievous in the spirit world. He was being mischievous, popping the bulbs, basically just to say, hey, could you take notice of me, please? So the static on the radio probably was indicative of all that wonderful, fabulous energy, which was interfering with your electrics. It is true also that I will often go into a TV studio or radio studio, and you can guarantee at some point somebody's going to say, we're having trouble with this, that, or the other of our electrics. And it's a common thing that happens. So I always try to warn people before I go into a studio now, you know, make sure you've got all the electrics right, or make sure you've got backup. Because energy, you know, energy can do, you know, everything is about energy. We're all energy. That's all we are, really, pretty much, is energy. Beautiful, wonderful, very, very strong energy. And those in the spirit world, when they visit us, they bring their energy with them. So, you know, don't be afraid that, Debra, that your dad was going to be by himself on his journey, because it sounds to me like he had a lot of people with him. And I'm asking Gregel, who's nodding and laughing and saying, totally and absolutely, he was carried very gently. So that's nice. Carolyn, you have a question?
We do. Okay. Tanya asked,
can I just say that I'm loving this, because we've got lots and lots and lots of questions, which is great. I wish I could fiddle out my, sorry if I keep jigging about, because this cushion behind my back, for whatever reason, is giving me irritation this morning. Sorry, go ahead with the question. Just, you know, just thought I'd mention it.
Tanya asked.
Yes, good morning, Tanya.
Rosemary, I have a fear of change. What could I do to not feel this way? And do you think I will be okay?
Yes, look, Tanya, you and I think it's the right, Tanya. I'm pretty sure we've had this conversation before. Life is change. Life is all about change. Sometimes this is what you have to do, Tanya. Okay, sometimes you have to hold your nose like this, right? And jump in. You won't drown. In fact, it'll be fabulous. It'll be wonderful. It might be a bit sticky at first. You might feel, oh gosh, I can't swim. But, you know, trauma, when people have trauma, the word trauma actually means change. So we're changing, and change is happening to us all the time. And for those of us who, you know, a little bit like the story I was telling you about the lady who spent 50 years in one place after she died because she was afraid of the change. She was afraid to change. She was afraid to step out into a new world and into a new life. If you want to, you know, I'm finishing off writing a new book.
No, that's so funny. Just had 2 questions pop up.
Did you?
Yes.
Well, here we are. I'm just finishing off. I'm doing the last, well, there are 2. I've got 2 more stories to tell. And one of them I'm partway through. And one of the stories in the book is called Life in a Box, and it's in you'll find a section with casebook stories, and it's called Life in a Box, and it's about a woman who is so afraid of change that she sticks in a box, and the more she stays in the box, the more miserable she becomes and the more unhappy she becomes. But if she won't step out of the box, nobody else can help her to do it. And the box is, you know, her way, her world, her little world. The box is the way she's thinking as well as the way she's behaving. You know, she goes to the grocery store on a Friday and she comes home and makes a cup of tea, sits, watches TV, and so on. You know, if you're not prepared to stretch yourself, if you're not prepared to try new things, if you're not prepared to put yourself out there and to talk to people, even to talk to, you know, your neighbors who you've never spoken to before, if you're not prepared to do that, then you're living life in a box, and that's not good. And you'll miss so many opportunities to live your life to its fullest, because you can't live your life to its fullest if you're sitting in a box. So that's that. Al, yes, Al, do you want to say anything?
Sure. And earlier, Charmed asked a related question to that.
Barbara?
Charmed, they have just as
Charmed, good morning.
They basically, you know, are looking to their spirit guide to. They've been looking for work for a while, and they're looking for the spirit guide. But I think you kind of addressed that, right?
I think so. You know, don't, you know, certainly look to your family in the spirit world for help and for guidance, but it's no good if you're not prepared to listen, is it? And if you're looking for a job, I think we did talk about this, I think last week a little bit. If if you're looking for a job, or if you're looking to change your life, if you're looking to go back to school, it's no good looking if you're sitting on your bum and doing it, is it? You've got to get out there. And sometimes that means, walking the pavements. It means going. I can remember I was 15 years old and I wanted a job. I wanted to, because in my country, I think you had to be something like 15 and a half and you could get a job, but you could only work so many hours. I can't remember now how it worked. But I was looking for like a weekend job, going to school during the week and looking for a shop assistant job. And I literally went through the high street in the city of Leicester, which is a long, long street, let me tell you, and dozens and dozens of shops. And I went in and out and in and out. I can remember I got myself a bit dressed up because we were looking for a job, so I had to be presentable. And I remember wearing sort of not high heels, but wearing some nice little high heels. And by the end of the day, my feet were so red and so sore and so blistered. And I actually didn't get a job because it turned out that I had to wait 2 months because my birthday I wasn't quite 15 and a half. So I had to wait 2 months before I went, but then I went and did it all over again and I got a job. So sometimes it does mean pounding the streets. Sometimes it means putting yourself out there. And sometimes it means just holding your nose and jumping in. You have to do what you have to do. And people say to me all the time, I'm on the internet all the time looking for a job. Well, does that mean that you've applied for 4 this week? Because if you're on the internet all day looking for a job, that means you must have applied, in my book, for at least 20, 30 jobs that are out there. And if you haven't applied for that many jobs, then you haven't tried hard enough. And don't mean to be cruel or mean. I'm trying to sort of open your mind a bit to look at this from a different point of view. Don't just look at jobs that that you're used to doing. Come out of the box. If you want a job, look for something, even if you're not qualified for it. Don't think, well, I can't do that, or I don't want that. If you want a job and you want a job, you honestly want a job, you'll go and find one, even if it's cleaning up a cafe after everybody's waiting tables, cleaning down tables. I've done that. There's no reason why you shouldn't do that. There's no reason why any of us, there's no job that should be below you if you truly want a job. You don't say anything about that, Karen?
No, I perfectly agree. I've had some.
We've
really
all. I wanted to say the word shitty, but we're not allowed to use that word. So I won't use that word. But we've all had those.
Crappy.
That's the word. That's worse. Or is it worse? I'm not sure.
No,
but anyway, we've all had those horrible, horrible
Mm-hmm.
jobs that we don't want. Me personally had a landlord who used to shove a bottle of beer up my bottom, thinking that it was funny. Ha ha ha. It was called. What is it called? It's called. Molesting, sexual harassment.
Yeah.
And did I leave? Eventually I did leave. But in the meantime, I had to deal with it because I had to feed my child. You want a job? Get a job. Sorry. What?
No, I'm just laughing because B says,
I'm sorry.
Out loud. Wait, you swear sometimes, Rosemary?
No, only occasionally.
She's not a saint.
No, I'm not a saint. I'm not a saint. Oh God, that's probably going to really just put the cat among the pigeons. Sorry, Al. Sorry. Have I let myself down, Al?
No, definitely not.
But back to the job thing, that is a common thing that you hear from younger people today is they don't want anybody to tell them what to do. And they deserve respect. And so they don't want to go work at McDonald's because nobody's going to respect them at McDonald's.
Well, the thing is about respect, you can't get it unless you earn
That's
it.
right.
And you never get it if you don't give it. So, I totally mean no disrespect to those people out there. And I know that there are many, many of you out there who don't have jobs, and you have tried and you have worked and you have tried to get a job. And my heart goes out to you because I know how difficult it is. However, what I would say to you is stop looking at the jobs that you can't get or that aren't available to you. And, you know, it's not about lowering your standards. It's about finding ways and means. And you'd be surprised, because you might, when you look outside of the box and you look at other, you know, situations that you've never entertained before, you might find that you actually enjoy doing something you've never tried before. You might find your true vocation trying that. You know, I know Carolyn's done some awful jobs. You notice I'm not swearing now. And I've done some awful jobs. I don't know about you, Al. Have you had to do some awful jobs in your time?
Yes, I have, for sure.
So, you know, go knocking on doors. Don't be afraid. And you know, and be proud of yourself for doing that. You know, be proud of yourself, because that's a brave thing to do.
I will say I have a little success story.
Go on.
Before I...
Do you want to come on camera?
No, I'm okay. Actually, we kind of match. Look at this.
All right, she's coming on camera then. Go on, tell your little story. I'm going to turn the camera slightly.
My job before I came to work for you was a manager of a Domino's pizza, but I started as the girl who would go and leave coupons on people's doors.
Oh, okay.
It was called door hanging. And I just did that 2 or 3 days a week for a couple of hours at a time and go and from there, you know, I went into the store and became a manager.
See?
And I never even knew I wanted to do that, but I really love that job.
Thank you for that story.
You're welcome.
See, thinking outside of the box, going outside of your comfort zone is a horrible, horrible thing to do, but you can do it. Al, you got any comments there?
Yeah, I think the biggest takeaway, and that was a challenge for me, as you know, Rosemary, to kind of think outside the box.
I know.
You know, is to just open yourself up to possibilities. You never know where your experience, you know, will lead you, and what kind of, you know, job is good for you, because often you don't have a chance to do that when you're starting out. You kind of just fall into a profession, you fall into a role. And, you know, when you are out of work, it's a nice time to, you know, explore beyond what you've been doing for most of your life.
And the word explore is, you know, it's a great word. You know, we need to explore within us, you know, what we want to do, what we're capable of, and so on. I mean, I've literally used to sell football coupons for next to nothing, and we'd get in this guy would come pick us up, we'd get in the car, he'd drop us off at a corner, and 2 hours later, having pounded the streets and knocking on doors and being insulted dreadfully, because the neighborhoods were not always nice neighborhoods, you know, and I'd get my, whatever the equivalent of, I don't know what it would be, the equivalent of maybe 10 cents or 20 cents for every coupon I sold, and you didn't sell that many. But again, you want to eat, find a way. You know, I've had my horrible landlord, who you all know about, and, you know, the sexual harassment that goes on. You know, I mean, all of that, you know, here we go with the 3 chairs, because we could find lots and lots of stories, couldn't we, for the 3 chairs? But all of those stories and all of those difficult times made me who I am today. It taught me that I was stronger than I ever thought that I was. And it taught me that where there is a will, there is a way. And that's not just an idle saying. Where there is a will, there is a way. All right, let's have another question. Carolyn, can we have a question?
Sure. Denise asks, my oldest son, who is 8 years old, has many anxieties. Can Gray Eagle tell if it's mainly because of things he senses in spirit?
I'm actually going to stop you now because Gray Eagle is talking to me about this. You have a very sensitive little boy there. And he's very, very aware of everything going on around him. I feel that there are some issues in the family that he's very aware of. No matter how much you try to hide things from kids, they always know what's going on. So he just needs a little bit of extra loving and a little bit of extra reassurance from you and from the family. yes, he's sensitive. Yes, he's aware. But I think at the moment, what you need to focus on here, darling, is, you know, the family issues that are affecting him, no matter how much you try to shield him from, you know, the difficulties and the upsets and the arguments that sometimes go on in a house. I also think he's having some issues at school, and Gregor is putting his hand on my shoulder because there lies the real concern. So check on what's going on with him at school. Be an active parent. Go down to the school, talk to the teachers and so on and so forth. He's a very sensitive little boy, but you know, you can help him. You can help him. And I think, you know, go to the school, find out what is going on at the school. Is he being bullied? Is he being, you know, being asked to do something that he can't manage to do? Does he need extra tuition, etc.? All of those things. That's where I think that's where you should be looking for, you know, for help. And you know, talking of little boys, my darling boy just passed his what is it? So I don't know if I told you this, Al. His what is that?
Admittance, entrance.
He took a test for the gifted and talented, and passed with flying colours. So we're thrilled about that. Just wanted to mention it. Anyway, so Al, come back to you. Shall we have do you have a question?
We had a comment from earlier. Sarah said, "You are beautiful, Rosemary," and that she actually took your Soul Signs book out of the library. She had read it 6 years ago, but she said it's funny how things work, that she actually signed it out and noticed that she had read it 6 years ago. It's been a while.
Well, good. I hope you're enjoying it, darling. And thank you. Thank you for saying that. I was talking with a friend of mine. We were talking about kids, actually, because as I've just said to you, my grandson just, got, really, really great results on his G&T results. And so we're very proud of him. But what matters the most, and he's also, of course, you realize I'm talking about my darling boy, but he's also an absolutely beautiful looking child. Looks like an angel, very blonde, curly hair, huge, big green eyes and all that stuff. He's lovely, he's gorgeous. But none of it matters. None of it, whatever we look like, or whatever brain power we have or don't have, whoever we are, it doesn't matter if we're not nice inside, if we're not good inside, if we're not loving inside, if we're not kind and gentle inside. And so it's nice when, thank you for saying I'm beautiful, because the older I get, the more I wonder, how that is. You peer in the mirror. How many times do we peer in the mirror, Carolyn? There's another line here, another one there. But beautiful, I'm assuming that the beauty is the inside that you're referring to. And I try my best. Don't always succeed by any means whatsoever. But beauty is from the inside, the most important thing. Al, I know you have beautiful kids too, don't you?
I do. I'm lucky like that.
And
yes.
Beautiful inside.
They are.
Al's kids, I have to tell you, when I first met Al's kids, Ali said, I don't know if I've told this story before, but he was coming up to Vermont and he couldn't find anywhere to stay. And my daughter berated me. She said, "You should have him stay with you." Well, he's got 3 kids, says I, and I don't know them. And I've got meetings, I've got things to do. And it was a particularly difficult time in my life. However, my daughter made me feel so guilty that I said to Al, "All right, then come with your 3 kids and your wife and your 6 dogs." No, just kidding about come and stay. And I also had lots of other people staying at the house as well. So, so I don't remember, did you stay? I think you stayed for 4 days or something.
It was.
Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday or something like that. And anyway, it was a long time. That's all I know. And of course, we did have a little competition because I was making a lasagna, I think, and Al just looked me right in the eye and said,
"Chicken parm, yeah."
Was it?
Chicken parm,
chicken
yeah.
Parmesan, chicken parm, thank you, chicken parmesan. That sounds more like me. Chicken parmesan, and he said, "Well, my grandmother makes the best." I'm thinking, well, thanks for that, as I put chicken parmesan down on the table. But you did actually tell me that it was
As good. Yeah,
I'm not sure
maybe.
you said it was better, but you said it was.
I didn't want to insult my grandmother, so as
Exactly.
I said, as good for
But it
sure.
was really good.
It was really good. It was
Anyway,
really good.
yes.
I still remember how good it was.
The point of this story is that not wanting these 3 children, one of them was only a baby at the time, but not wanting these darling little boys that Al has. He's got 2 boys and a girl, and you know, we were busy, but at the end of their stay, I was so astounded at how beautiful they were, how well behaved they were, how polite they were. You should be very proud, Al. You've done a great job with your kids. And so I now say I'll have them back anytime. Is the father maybe not so much, but
Very nice. Thank you
do you
for
have a question?
now you totally threw me off. So let me see if I can have a question.
What?
Yes. IFE. I-F-E. I asked if that was his or her first name, but
Well, it's either Ife or Iffy.
Yes.
I kind of like Iffy, but good morning, whoever you are. I'm sorry we can't pronounce your name.
Yeah, it is their first name.
Their first name. Oh, yeah, they just said it is their first name. Excellent.
Well, it could be Eve.
Yes.
Anyway, let's go. Give the question.
So their insecurities are keeping them from living life. The doctors have given them all kind of diagnosis. And this is, I think, an empowerment question. What they want to know what they can do to stand on their own 2 feet again. They're not working because of it. But it's horrible, they'll go on to say. Is there anything, they almost cannot breathe. Is there anything they can do?
Yes, well, the first thing that comes to mind is we did talk about mantras last week or the week before, so you need to go check that out, darling, because a mantra is something that is going to empower you and to help you with your insecurities. It's going to feed you. It's going to allow you to give power to yourself. It doesn't give you power as much as it reminds you of the power that you have. And if you say a mantra, which is a phrase or even just one sentence, go back to the previous YouTube channels and look for that. And you can find, using words of power, you say it 10 times over, repeat it 10 times over, 3 times a day. That is one of those things that you can do. You can also do the card, which we talked about, doing the card exercise, which gives you a focus. It helps you to focus on the things that you would like to do. It gives you a focus to work towards being successful and becoming much more sure of yourself. So that's another thing. There are so many different exercises, and we will talk about them more throughout, the different shows. Maybe we'll talk about climbing in the bubble next week. You visualize a bubble and you climb into the bubble. There's a lot more to it than that, but putting yourself in the same place emotionally and spiritually is another way. But the mantra it will really work. And if you do it, it's no good if you don't do it. You can't ask me questions and expect help from me unless you don't give yourself help, unless you don't do what I'm suggesting that you do. So doing a mantra is a huge, huge, huge thing. In the meantime, darling, we'll put you on our healing list. If you could make a note, Carolyn, we'll put you on our healing list and we will send you healing every day. And please let us know how you get on. Email us, rosemary@rosemaryaltea.com. I think we've got time for...
and Rosemary, perhaps someone like Ife or Iffy, would be well suited if they can afford it for those workshops that we're talking about.
Oh yeah, because that it's okay. The workshops that we're going to be doing are all about empowerment and empowering you, and they're all about you learning, about the power that you do have within you and learning to develop that and to help that power to grow. So yes, something like that would help. Whether you do it with others or whether you do it with somebody else. So if you want some sort of an empowerment classes or empowerment exercises, but start with the mantra. talking of the classes, the empowerment classes that we're going to be doing, we are so close now to putting it online. So don't be surprised in the next couple of weeks if you hear from us. And I think it's $25 a month, which is less than a cup of coffee a week. Just so you know, I'm trying to make it as available to you as I possibly can. I'm not going to be charging a fortune for any of this because, you know, there are so many of us like this young, we don't even know if it's a lady or a man, do we? But like this young person who is struggling here. There's so many people who are struggling and who do need to know how to find that empowerment for themselves, to use their own power and to become stronger in the knowing and in the developing of that power. So all right, so
Ife is a lady.
Ife is a lady, and we're not sure how to pronounce your name, not that it matters, but we're sending you lots of healing, darling. We hope that you're feeling better soon, but you've got to work at it yourself. Got to work at it, and we'll help you as much as we can. Well, I think we have time very quickly for one more question, Carolyn.
Denise asks, if we are a speck of God, why do we need to learn and evolve?
Well, I don't know that we are a speck of God. So I don't know that we are. I don't think, you know, I understand, I think, what you're saying there, Denise. I've never heard it quite put that way. We are, so many of us, I always used to say years ago that I believe that every one of us had a little bit of God within us. Unfortunately, that isn't the case, I've learned, you know, since then. But so many of us, the majority of us who walk this earth, have a little bit of God within us. But we have to recognize it. We have to nurture it. We have to nurture that speck, that little bit that we have within us. We have to, if we don't recognize it, it's not going to grow. It's not going to become part of us. I mean, why would you ask, why would you learn anything at all? Well, because learning is fun. Learning is expansion. Learning is everything. You know, why wouldn't you want to learn? Why would you want to just remain the speck? Why would you want to remain the little bit of God inside? Why wouldn't you want to develop that God force and that God power within yourself? So why wouldn't you, is my question back to all of you.
One quick question.
Oh, very quick. Very, very fast.
My view on beauty.
Pardon?
My view on beauty asks.
Oh, hello, my view on beauty. You can't give us a name. Come on, can't call you that. But anyway, never mind. Let's have the question.
What language do people in heaven communicate? For example,
brilliant.
If people are from different countries,
question.
Can they still speak?
Brilliant question. We have the language. I won't say the language of love because there's a song in there somewhere, but we have a language that we use. And again, you need to read my books because there's a certain sign language that you can use with the spirit world, which communicates everything. But we have a language which it's sort of translated automatically. It's a sort of like, you know, I call it a language, but it's really more of a communication. So we're able to, you know, even when I'm talking to the most bizarre language that I've ever had to, so didn't really combat, but just as an example, was Japanese, because I don't speak a word of it. And I had a Japanese guy who spoke good English who came to see me, but he wanted to talk to his ancestors who were all Japanese and spoke not a word of English. Was there a barrier? Absolutely not, because there are no language barriers whatsoever. I understood them perfectly. They understood me perfectly. It wasn't the case with the guy who came to see me, who wanted to talk to his ancestors, because although he spoke good English, sometimes we'd have to sort of go the long explanations to what I was saying. But language in the spirit world is unique. It's of its own kind. It's about communicating, and there is never a barrier, ever, ever, ever. So that was a great question. All right, we have to close. So before we go, I'd like to say thank you to Carolyn for sorting. You feeling a bit better? Everything working out a little bit more?
It's getting there, yeah.
She is getting there, so that's good to know. And I'd like to say thank you to Al. Thank you, Al, for joining us and for helping me with this. Brilliant. I'd like to say thank you to Grey Eagle, and I would also like to thank all of you for watching, because without you, we wouldn't have a show. And thank you for all these fabulous questions that we had this week. We had lots and lots and lots of them. I like it when we have these questions. I love it when you interact with me. If you're listening to this and you couldn't manage the live show, remember Rosemary at rosemaryaltea.com. Email us with your questions. In the meantime, until I see you all again, please have a happy Easter. The Easter Bunny will be popping around to my darling boy's house with an Easter egg and probably an Easter Bunny as well, a chocolate one that he can gnaw at. I will have my FaceTime time with him. So that's how I'm going to spend my Easter a little bit. I'm also going to be cooking. I'm going to be gardening a little bit. I'm going to be doing all sorts of things and doing lots and lots of reading and writing. There was a question about the new book, very quickly, very briefly.
How's it coming along? When's it going to be ready?
2 more stories to go. Oh, and then I'll let you all know. All right, so in the meantime, have a wonderful and a happy Easter, or a wonderful and a happy weekend until I see you next week. Please have a very, very, very blessed day.